Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm sorry it's been such a long delay to get another video out. Unfortunately, I actually discovered that my computer really didn't have the specs for video editing. I did have to invest in a new computer and it did take quite a while to get here. As you can see, we are buried in snow here. And we actually got, honestly, it felt like close to 16 inches a couple of weeks ago. It's finally now starting to melt down, but we did get some more today, and I think we're supposed to get some more here soon as well. So it is really, really cold, but it is absolutely beautiful. Obviously, I'm not doing anything in the garden at the moment. I am still trying to take care of all my houseplants and my scented pelargoniums. Before I discovered that I could not keep editing the footage that I had filmed an intro and I was showing you the embroidery kits that I got. So I actually ordered a couple of kits from England from a brand called The Stitchery, and I did film the process of me going through the kit and doing it for the first time. I am totally new to embroidery, so I had a lot of things to learn, and I think I came out of that learning at least 8 new stitches, which I was really proud of myself for. Yeah, so I will be showing you that footage in this video. Around this time of the year, I like to do as many crafts as possible, or maybe take the chance to learn a new hobby. So that's what I've been focusing my energy on since I can't be out gardening. And I'm also getting really excited for prepping ahead, thinking about what I'm going to plant come spring. So I'll share that with you soon as well. And in my last video, I did share with you that I was reading a Christmas book called Christmas at the Nantucket Restaurant. And I did finish that book actually first week of January, past Christmas. And I have to say, I did like the book. It definitely was kind of what it says on the tin, where it was just kind of a short and sweet Hallmark-like kind of romance novel. So kind of more slow paced and just very warm, cozy vibes. I did start up a new read a few weeks ago called The Blue Maiden. I think the author is Anna Noyes. I hope I'm pronouncing her last name correctly. And so far it has been a gorgeous book. I'm about halfway through and it's quite a gothic novel. It's a little bit dark and a little creepy at times, but it's just gorgeously written, a lot of imagery. If you like books that kind of transport you and have just beautiful prose, she's an excellent writer and I love the book so much. So I will keep you updated on that, and if any of you have read it, let me know what you thought of it in the comments. There were actually points of the book that I wrote down in my journal because there were things said in that book that sat so deeply with me that I don't know that I've connected with before in a book. Specifically, not to get too far on a tangent here, but specifically about anxiety and what that feels like and kind of what it feels like to have a panic attack. There's a point of the book at which one of the lead characters is sitting in a pew at a church and she's looking down at her feet, and I'll have to find the quote and read it to you. Something to the tune of, she's sitting in this pew and she's looking down at her feet and she's looking at this row of all of these shoes and she starts to lose sense of which one is actually hers. And I don't know if any of you guys have experienced that kind of like a disassociative out-of-body experience, but that really hit me hard. So there's a lot in that book that runs really deep. I've also really been getting back into movies, and I actually went to the movie theater for the first time in many years, and we made our first visit back to see Marty Supreme, and I have to say I was pleasantly surprised. It was not at all what I expected. A very just kinetic, like fast-paced, high energy movie. At times it had certain scenes that I could have done without. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Hint, it's about a dog. But I think in general, it was just a really artistically done movie. I liked it. But yeah, I just wanted to film a quick catch up with you guys since it had been a while and just let you know that I'm still here. I'm still trying to make videos, and hopefully we'll get to do a little bit of baking here soon, maybe on the next video. This video is going to be quite long with the embroidery process that I want to show you guys. But yeah, I hope you're all doing well and staying warm. It's Editing Emily here from the future. And I mentioned that I wanted to read a part of the book to you that really stuck with me as a person who has definitely experienced many panic attacks in my life. I don't think I've ever seen it explained so succinctly and in such a manner that's resonated with me so deeply as these couple of lines right here. So I wanted to read this to you. So the paragraph says, "When Bee touches her mother's stone in her pocket, she does so often unthinkingly. She has the fleeting impulse to toss it to shore. Every other stone there looks the same as hers, perfectly round and white, and a roiling panic starts to rise like an oncoming wave, like the time she looked too long at her feet, tucked neatly under the church pew, in the row of children wearing the same shoes, pair after pair, and lost the sense that her feet belonged to her, though she was attached to them, her vision turning swimmy and bright. That feeling is a feeling I am just unfortunately very well acquainted to. It's a wild, horrific type of feeling. Serious kudos to this author for being able to put such an indescribable feeling into words so well. She did a great job of that. And just as an update, I'm actually getting pretty close to finishing this book now, and I do highly recommend it. I think it's very much worth your time to read. It is just a beautiful book. I cannot state that enough. All right, we've made it over to my desk, and I have the Stitchery Lane Bon Bon embroidery kit, and we're gonna go ahead and give it a shot. I did pick up an 8-inch embroidery hoop, which is the size I think it recommended on the back. Recommends a size 8-inch embroidery hoop, yep. And I also picked up a set of these embroidery needles. How cute. So it's this little folio. And here is the fabric. That has a little design on it. And look how cute this is. This is the color card, and it has all of the thread that we're going to need for this project. There's a couple of additional pieces of fabric in here. I'm not really sure what that's for at the moment without reading the instructions. We'll find out. And then within this little portfolio, there's a couple of little cards here. Looks like one of those fabrics must be the iron-on stabilizer. All right, so here is the instructions card, and it mentions needing the 8-inch hoop. Talks about the needles and scissors, and on the back it looks like it shows you how to do the stitches and where. So let's see, ironwork, 2 strands dark gray, split stitch, so it tells you the type of stitches that you need. And I'm going to have to find out how to do some of these stitches since I've never done them before. This card here mentions an iron-on stabilizer, and it says iron-on stabilizer is used to support fabric and make it easier to stitch onto. It is fusible on one side and soft on the other. If you are in doubt about whether your linen is firm enough, then before you start your embroidery, you should attach a lightweight stabilizer. Okay, I suspect it's this material right here that we want to iron on. All right, so I'm going to fill you in on the steps I just did downstairs off camera. So after reading this card, I figured out that I needed to take the iron-on stabilizer, cut it out, and basically secure it to the back of the design. So I brought this downstairs and I ironed out the fabric, and then I basically put the rough side of the iron-on fabric down against the back of the design with the soft side facing up, and then pressed the iron to the design. And it recommended putting like a tea towel or protective cloth over the design to prevent the iron from marking it, but I didn't have that problem, and I couldn't honestly get it to heat up enough through the cloth that I had, so I just did it directly, and I'd say it came out well. I think I was able to get all of the design covered by the iron-on fabric. If you can see, there's a little bit of transparency there. So I think we are good to now put it into the hoop and start. And I'm just gonna say, any of the seasoned embroiders out there, have mercy on me since I'm new at this. I'm definitely learning as I go along. Okay, so we're gonna do this for the first time together. I have my phone off to the side here with a step-by-step instructions guide. I've never used a hoop before, but it says separate the outer and inner ring. So I assume I do that by loosening the tension there. Okay, let me move this off to the side to the flat surface. Okay, place the fabric over the inner ring. All right, now it says place the outer hoop over the inner on top of the fabric. definitely a bit tight. There we go. All right, so now it says to tighten the screw. Then it says to flip over on a flat surface and press down the inner ring and work your way around, pulling the fabric outwards. It says continue flipping over, pulling tight and tightening the screw until your fabric is tight as a drum. Okay, it's not really that tight yet. All right, so I think we've got to the desired state here. Okay, so I'm ready to start my first stitch, and I think I want to start with this top shelf leftmost jar of lollipops, and this appears to be a satin stitch. I just watched a quick YouTube video on how to do that, and it seemed pretty straightforward. Famous last words. So on the instructions right here, it says jar 1, pot is a satin stitch filling 2 strands of gray. So let's look at our thread card, and this appears to be the gray, and let's go ahead and grab 2 strands. Shout out to Thread Unraveled on YouTube because they just explained that. So I actually just took these 2 threads from the card book and thought that these were 2 strands, but it turns out that within each of these individual threads, there are even smaller individual threads, if you can see that, if it'll focus. So in actuality, 2 strands is not 2 of these big things, but 2 of these individual strands. So I'm really glad that I found that out before I went and used too much thread. Okay, so I just got these 2 threads separated. They're very fine, and I think that's what we need now to get started. And next I'm going to look up how exactly I thread my needle, and we'll get started. So I have my needle, and I'm going to go ahead and thread it through if I can. Okay, so according to the video I'm watching, we're going to take the end of the thread right here, and it says to hold the needle in the left hand, press the embroidery thread with the index finger and wrap the embroidery thread around the needle 2 to 3 times to the right. 1, 2, 3. Okay, and then we're going to pull it through. Oh, I think it worked. We have a knot. Looks like I got it exactly where I wanted it. Just gonna pull it through. We're going to go to the very top corner of that jar. Just going to bring it exactly next to that first stitch that we did. Bring it through. All right, I'm gonna work on the rest of the jar stitches off camera and then show you the progress when I finish. All right, so here is the finished container. And now we're gonna go ahead and work on the lollipops. Okay, so I think I'm going to start with the middle lollipop. Here's our progress so far, and I'm learning that I need to make the stitches a little bit bigger because you can still see the outline quite a bit. All right, so here's the first container finished with the lollipops. Moving on to the jar to the right, it says in the instructions that we'll need to do a split stitch outline. It's like a massive tongue twister. So I just looked it up on YouTube and I feel like I got it down. It's not too complicated. So I'm gonna show you what I'm gonna do here. So let's see, I think I'm going to start at the bottom corner of the jar. Okay, so the video said that we were going to go 1 stitch forward, and I made this mistake the first time. I actually made the stitch too small, and then I really couldn't see where the middle was. So I'm gonna try to make the stitch a little bit bigger. All right. So we'll pull that through, and then what we want to do is find the middle point of the stitch and come up through and split the stitch, which might be a little bit tricky in the angle that I'm trying to do this. Kind of like that. Okay, so I think we got the middle of the stitch, and then we'll do the same thing and go 1 stitch forward and repeat the process. All right, so I just finished my first jar. I found the stitch to get a little bit easier as I kept practicing it, but I will say, as you can see, the jar didn't come out 100% perfect. Specifically the top looks a little bit lost, but I do have a little bit of leftover gray thread still, so I'm going to also outline the second jar on the shelf before I move on to the interior contents. Here are the first 2 jars done on the top shelf, and that first one, like I said, was a little bit challenging, but I feel like the second one went a little bit better. And then here is what the filling in both of them should look like. We are going to start a new stitch called a seed stitch, and we're going to use 2 strands of dark purple and 2 strands of lavender for that. And then for the third jar, it looks like 2 strands of light peach, and it's going to be a new stitch as well called an elongated French knot, so YouTube will be my best friend with that one. Thankfully for me, I just looked up the seed stitch and it is incredibly simple. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like. It's just small kind of random stitches. So I think I'm going to start at the top here. Complete the dark purple stitch, and now we're going to go ahead and do the same stitch with lavender right next to the dark purple. Here's the second jar finished, and I think it's super cute. Just watched a tutorial on how to do this, and I think I'm comfortable enough to try it, so I'm going to start. And granted, the tutorial I watched was for just a French knot. This is an elongated French knot, which I think I have an idea of what they mean, so let's give it a shot. Okay, so I've already brought the thread through, and I'm going to place this down so I can actually hold the thread. So you're going to put your needle like this and wrap 1, 2 times, and then you're going to take your needle and bring it down. And because this says elongated, you typically go back through the same hole, I guess, but I'm going to give it a little bit of room. And I believe you still want to hold it while you're putting it back through. Just keep holding. Sorry if this is a little bit hard to see. Let the stitch come down so you get this little knot. Okay, so I somewhat feel like that came out looking like locks of curls rather than candy, but that is the completed jar with the elongated French knot. It was definitely a little bit more challenging for sure. The most challenging stitch I've done so far on this, and hopefully with more practice, it'll just become easier. Okay, so now that we're done with these 3 jars, I want to pivot away for a bit and actually practice my French knots more with this topiary. And according to the instructions, it says that the leaves are made with 2 strands of green thread, and you basically just fill the shape with the French knots. So I've got my green thread and we're going to give it a go. So here's the topiary top complete, and I'm actually really happy with how this came out. I feel like I did 1,000 French knots, but it was really good practice, and overall it's actually probably my favorite embroidery stitch so far. Okay, so next up on the agenda, I am going to complete the rest of the topiary and do the pot. So it says to outline the pot with a split stitch using 2 strands of beige thread, which I have right here prepared. And it says to fill it with a satin stitch using the same thread. Alright, so here's the plant pot fully stitched, and honestly, I think of all the stitches I've learned so far, which disclaimer is only like 6, but I have to say the satin stitch seems to definitely be the hardest. Getting those lines to be parallel and neat is a bit of a challenge. So for the next part of the design, I'm going to create a bow, and for the bow, I needed 3 strands of white thread, and I'm actually going to be incorporating a new stitch, and shout out to Cutesy Crafts on YouTube. She makes the easiest to understand stitch tutorials, and I just watched how to do this one. So I'm gonna do it for the first time, and it's called the Lazy Daisy. Okay, so I've come up through the bottom there, and then you're essentially going to bring it back down into that same hole, and you wanna leave a loop when you pull down. Then we're going to bring the needle up through that curved loop. All right, just like that, without tightening it too much. And then we'll do 1 stitch just right to the back of that to secure it. Just like that. Given that I have my beige thread at the ready, I think I'm going to next work on this one right here. All right, so there is the base of the candy canes, and this was done with 6 strands of red so that they're nice and thick, and we're gonna do a whip stitch with white on top, which is a new stitch for me, so wish me luck. Candy canes was a lot of fun. Okay, so the last piece that I can see that requires a lot of beige is this jar of lollipops. And so I'm going to go ahead and proceed with that one, and that'll be my first jar on the right side. Okay, so here is what the finished jar of lollipops is looking like. Admittedly, I kind of zoomed ahead off camera and did the split stitch, that's challenging to say, around all of the jars with the gray on the left side, and then did some of the fillings with some of the stitches that I already was acquainted with. And I am moving on now to the lower left jar. I just encountered a new stitch that I need to do. I'm going to need to learn a bullion knot. I think I'm saying that right. I feel questionably confident on attempting it. It definitely seems probably like the most challenging stitch that I have learned so far. So let's dive in and see how we do. The instructions say that I needed 3 strands of peach, and I have to do a bullion knot wrapped 6 times, which feels a little bit challenging given I've never done it before, so I don't really know what a knot wrapped 6 times would be lengthwise, but I'm just gonna go for it. All right, so I'm going to come up. Oh, and then judging from the photo, it looks like maybe here is about the length we want. And in the video, they said not to completely close the loop. So we'll leave a loop, and then we want to come up through the original hole that we went down with. Close enough. Okay, so I just had to pause and rewatch that video. Shout out again to Cutesy Crafts. But we're going to take, and I'm sorry, this is as zoomed in as I can be for this. I'm going to take this thread here and begin to wrap it around this needle. All right, so 1, 2, 3, and I'm gonna push down a bit. 4, 5, and 6. So that should be what we need. Tighten it and kind of pull it down. See if you can see that. And it looks like that is maybe about perfect for the length we created. If I tilt the needle down, maybe like 1 more. I think I'm just gonna wrap it 1 more time, even though it said 6, just because of how I did this. So then we're going to remove the needle from the stitch, which is definitely challenging. All right, and if you look closely, I think we achieved it. So now we have to take the thread, put it back into that second hole, and there it is. All right, so here's what the finished bullion stitches are looking like. As you can see, I started working on the last jar on the left side, and that's just gonna be a straight stitch with 6 strands of yellow, and then couched over with some light peach. And couching was a new stitch to me, so I had to look that up. But it looks like from the instructions, I'll basically just be creating a stripe across the yellow. All right, so just to show you an update on where I'm at, I did quite a few of these off camera and just kind of zoomed ahead because doing them individually would probably be a little bit tedious to watch, but I wanted to show you the one I'm really proud of, which is these swirled lollipops. I just have a couple more jars left to do, and then I'll update you when I'm done with them. Okay, so I think we're on day 5 or so at this point. I know I haven't really been updating on how much I've been able to accomplish per day, but I have been taking breaks, and I just wanted to show you. So I just completed all of the jars. Kind of get a little bit closer so you can see the details there. We did some more French knots, some seed stitches, and I love the effect that this stitch right here gives. It's called a stem stitch, and it creates what looks a little bit like a rose. So those are really cute, and that was done as well down here with these lollipops. So you can see at the top here, I also completed the bunting, and I'm going to proceed to the ironwork at the top, which has some hearts. Yay, more progress. So I did finish up that ironwork with the hearts, and now all that's left is the shop outlines and the shelves. All right, I'm happy to say I finally finished all of the stitches. It was a little bit of a struggle towards the end because I was running low on the white thread, and I think that's because actually the kit said to do some straight stitching along the bottom, but I instead did the stem stitching. So I think I was using more of it than I was supposed to, but regardless, I actually scraped together as many tiny pieces of thread as I could to get this done, so I didn't have to go right out to the store to get more. And I'm really, really pleased with how it came out, especially given that this is my first time trying to do embroidery. And I think this kit was really helpful for giving me the nudge that I needed to learn some of these new stitches and kind of put them into practice. And overall, I really enjoyed making this. The very last step that I have to do at the top on the awning here is I can either stitch it, or I can put this piece of linen over it with kind of a ruched effect. I think I'm going to try my hand at that, and just for photo reference sake, it's right there at the top, the way that they have it. So to do that, I'm going to take it out of the embroidery hoop, and it recommends using a stab stitch, which I'll be honest, I don't really know what that is, but I think I have an idea of kind of how to make this effect. So I'm gonna try it out with some light pink thread, since that's the closest thing I have at the moment to white. Okay, so I'm gonna take the linen and sort of approximate how much of it I need to cover this area, and I'm going to cut it. So here it is, all done. The canopy was a little bit tricky. I actually brought my needle up and did some straight vertical stitches going up and then just pulled them really tight. And I had to play around with that a couple times, but here it is all completed and I'm really happy with it. I still don't really know what I'm going to do with this, if I'm going to frame it and use it as wall art or a pillow face or what. If you guys have any suggestions for what you think it might look nice on, let me know.